And the Supreme Court heard arguments today in a case involving two major issues. The first is birthright citizenship. President Trump wants to deny citizenship to a baby born in the United States unless at least one parent is a citizen.
The other issue is what's called a national injunction. The question is whether an order by a judge in one federal district can be applied nationwide, even if parties not involved in the case.
Here's Jan Crawford.
This expecting mother says she dreams of her baby girl being born an American citizen. She asks us not to show her face because she's undocumented.
Sería deportado.
She worries without birthright citizenship, her baby could be deported with her back to Guatemala, where she says she feared a stalker who murdered her friend. But she's gotten a reprieve. Judges across the country are rejecting President Trump's efforts to end automatic birthright citizenship. 3 of those judges entering injunctions that apply nationwide. Juan Perano is the head of LULAC, the nation's largest Latino civil rights organization.
What is your concern if the court says no nationwide injunctions?
Well, then you're going to have lawsuits effectively filed in every single state. It's going to tie up the courts, and individuals may lose their protections under the Constitution.
The Obama and Biden administrations opposed national injunctions, arguing judges in conservative states, such as Texas, where opponents chose to file lawsuits, were dictating national policy. Now the shoe is on the other foot. A CBS News analysis of more than 300 lawsuits filed against the Trump administration found that outside of Washington, D.C., the most are in liberal Massachusetts, followed by Maryland, California, and New York. West Virginia Attorney General J.B. McCuskey says that shows why it's a problem when these rulings apply nationwide.
People begin to look at circuit judges as an extension of the political process. And that is fundamentally disastrous for the way that the public views the impartiality and the power of our court system.
Disastrous. Why?
Because the court is nothing if it doesn't have its integrity.
And Jan Crawford's at the High Court right now. So, Jan, any sense of where the justices are leaning after hearing how they heard the arguments today?
You know, Maurice, I mean, sometimes I can stand here and confidently predict how they're going to decide a case just based on the questions that they asked during those arguments. This is not that case. I mean, it was over 2 hours of argument, and they really struggled with how they're going to resolve this. I think there is a majority of justices that are ready to say no more and put an end to these nationwide injunctions. But how are they going to write that? What's that rule going to look like? Sometimes there's a saying here, that opinion just won't write, and it's not at all clear how they're going to get there, especially as it relates to this issue of birthright citizenship.
Yeah, Jan, how much was this about this idea of a national injunction, which is an abstract question? How much mixed in was the birthright citizenship, even though that wasn't really what the case was about?
Yeah, I mean, that isn't what the case is about, as you said. I mean, this is the issue of whether a single judge in one district can essentially dictate policy nationwide. It's not a partisan issue. Democratic presidents don't like these things either. President Obama didn't. President Biden didn't. That's the issue before the justices. Eventually, I think they're probably going to have to decide the issue of birthright citizenship, maybe sooner rather than later. Not in this case. And so far, the president, right now anyway, has lost that issue in every single lower court that's considered it.
All right, Jan Crawford at the Supreme Court for us. Thank you, Jan. And the
Shalom. First and foremost, call Allah, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of the Great Millstone who do rule and teach well. Peace and blessings, salutations, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. Barakatham to the sincere believers, the hopefully elect out there listening, learning, keeping the faith and diligence of our Lord Yahweh Shai, occupying in the prophecies until all is fulfilled and Lord will, we are redeemed. Back again in the news with a few articles I pulled up, so I don't really have any precepts lined up. We just gonna flow in the spirit. Whatever scriptures come to mind, we'll get it through the spirit. And Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. So this right here, this Supreme Court, with Trump now questioning, should birthright citizenship be granted to immigrants? Now, this is a thing, this is really predicated on destroying the Israelites, because you have many Jakes that then came up from South America, the Caribbean, even overseas, and some, African nations, European nations and things like that, So, for example, you may have a Jake that came up from Ecuador, to flee the chaos going on in that country. You come to America and you have a baby on American soil, so that baby can become a citizen, and basically you can bring your family through that one baby. Same thing if you got you get a Jamaican Jake, or a Haitian Jake. These things happen often. This is like a main way to get your foot in the American system. You know what I'm saying? So now Trump is looking to get rid of that. And again, this is mainly going to affect the Israelites. You see? So right now, you have a lot of Jakes that are in America. They came in through Biden. And even before Biden, they came in. Whether it be they had green cards. Also, you have, like I know some Jamaican Jakes, they'll come up from Jamaica and they'll marry an American citizen so that they can get citizenship by default. All right, then they'll have a baby here, so now the whole family is American citizens. Like, there's a way to get around it in the system. So Trump is trying to cut all that out. So now what you have is the scenario being brought up of, okay, at least one parent has to be an American citizen for that child to be solidified as an American citizen. So if you have recently with the Biden immigration, you have a lot of Jakes that then came up that are not even citizens, man. But they didn't had babies during this time, and now the baby's a citizen. So we're in a scenario now where we've already been seeing it, to where the Trump administration has been mass deporting, so-called Latinos, man. You know what I'm saying? Mass deporting, families being ripped apart at the border. You know what I'm saying? So now with ICE, they've been going around, rounding up anybody that's found to not be a U.S. citizen, that's found to be a, so-called migrant. All right? So this is the devil coming down with great wrath. When you go back to ancient Egypt, when, Jake started to multiply in ancient Egypt, and the Egyptians saw that we were fruitful, that we were having a lot of babies and we were increasing in the land. What did Pharaoh say? Pharaoh said, let us deal with them wisely. Let's get that. All right? Let us deal with them wisely. All right? Because Pharaoh, he couldn't just go out and just put the sword to Jake like that. You know what I'm saying? He had to operate in a very covert way. All right? This is Exodus 1. And let's start at verse 6. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. So see, Jake prospered in Egypt, all right, because under the time of Joseph pretty much set the tribes up to where they had it real good, all right. But as it said, the time came when Joseph died and all that generation died, and a new king came in that didn't know of the works of Joseph, all right. So he saw the Israelites at that time, and he like, whoa, hold on, they getting a little bit too, they're a little bit too fruitful over here, so we gotta diminish their numbers, okay. That's why it says, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. All right, so you see here that there's a fear. All right, you see that there's a fear from the Egyptians, the Hamites, that look, these people are now more and mightier than we, so they can easily overtake us, right? This is what they're saying to themselves. So now let's read on. Exodus 1 and 10. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Right now, we know that in America, these Edomites were really not even just America, but worldwide. These Edomites, they have a negative birth rate. You see, they're dying faster than being born. So the fact that many of, the South American Jakes, you know what I'm saying, then came up through the border, all right, millions of them now, all right, because Esau likes to put the false statistic out there that we are the minority. Well, no, in fact, Esau, he's the minority in his own country. So as we read, right, in verse 9, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. So now Esau, he's looking at it like, oh shit, these Israelites, they all over the place. Like, literally, you can't go nowhere without seeing a Mexican, without seeing a Ecuadorian, you know what I'm saying, without seeing a Panamanian, you know what I'm saying. Like, all them South American Jakes, they done came up through the border under Biden, and that was all from the Lord, because many of them Jakes was brought over here to either receive judgment or to be saved. You see what I'm saying? But this is what the king of Egypt, which the modern day king of Egypt, the king of Babylon, is now Trump. All right, so he's looking at it like, damn, these Israelites, they all over the place, and looking at the so-called white population, they're very small. All right, when you read Obadiah, it tells you that I've made these small among the heathen, talking about Esau, the so-called white people. All right, so Pharaoh's solution was to, come and let us deal wisely with them. Let's change the laws. Okay, let's repeal these benefits. Let's change the Constitution. All right, this is the devil dealing wisely with the children of Israel to destroy them. All right, because his fear is that one day we're going to overtake them, but it's already prophesied that we're going to overtake Esau. All right, but as we read in Revelation 12 and 12, it says, the devil cometh down with great wrath, for he knows that he has a short time. All right, so Esau, he's getting ready to come down with that great wrath. He's setting the stage, okay? And when you go here, right, this is, I just asked ChatGPT, can I get a summary of what the Enemy Alien Act is about? So the Enemy Alien Act of 1798, it says it was passed during the presidency of John Adams, and the purpose of it was to allow the U.S. government to detain or deport non-citizens, aliens from countries with which the U.S. is at war. So really this Alien Enemies Act is really only supposed to be used during wartime. All right, but check it out. When you go back to Genesis, right, it says that the serpent, which we know that the serpent was referring to the so-called white man, you know what I'm saying? He comes in that serpent-like spirit, very subtle, not trying to make too much noise, but the way that he operates is very covert, you know what I'm saying? So his laws and legislation and his policies, these are all covert ways that he uses to destroy the people and mainly come after you Israelites. You see? So this is really only supposed to be used during wartime, but when you really get into it, this devil is at war, has been at war with you Jakes. All right? You don't see them deporting, because look, This is how much of a hypocrite that Esau is. You don't see Esau deporting. Matter of fact, this devil just brought over how many white South Africans? They not citizens of America, but he's not deporting them. All right. You had them small hats. All right. You had a lot of small hats leave the land of Israel and come over to America because of the tensions that are going on in that land. You've had Ukrainian expats come over to America. So they welcome other Edomites to come into America to boost their numbers, right? But when it comes to you Israelites, the brown people, right? They say, nah, we got to get rid of you because we're not going to have you become more and mightier than us in our own land. And this is why there's been systematic oppression. This is why there's a liquor store on every corner in Jake neighborhoods, you know. This is why Jake has the worst availability to health care, the lowest life expectancy, all right, the worst access to healthy food. All these things are done by design, man. See, this is what we just read in Exodus 1. Let us deal with them wisely, okay? And of course, he outright, you know, just puts Jake to death, you know what I'm saying? But there's a more subtle way that he goes about destroying us, right? That's the point. Okay, so this Alien Enemies Act, this is being prepared to be used, and this is gonna come into effect once that birthright citizenship, you know, once they repeal that. All right, so check it out. Key provisions: if the U.S. declares war on another country, any citizen of that country living in the U.S. can be considered an enemy alien. The president has the authority to detain, regulate, or remove these individuals. Take action without a trial or court involvement, right? And hasn't the rhetoric from Trump been coming out that he's looking to deny the right to due process, which is a constitutional right? So this devil is openly looking to dismantle the Constitution. You know what I'm saying? He's actively doing it, all right? This is why he's looking to take away due process. He's not willing to give you a court date. If he sees you guilty, then that's just what it is. You don't have a right to defend yourself. You don't have a right to a fair trial. All right, pretty much you're guilty before proven innocent for you, Jace. You know what I'm saying? So the devil is showing his horns, man. Esau already about to come down with great wrath on you tribes out there. All right. It says, unlike the other Alien and Sedition Acts, the Enemy Alien Act is still in effect today with updates. It has been used in wartime situations such as World War I and II and remains part of U.S. law under Title 50 of the U.S. Code. So that's the basic synopsis of what this thing is all about, which is where they're going with this. All right. Now, let's go to Daniel chapter 7, right? Because this devil, he's literally, you know, changing times and laws. Yep. Daniel 7. And let's get 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. And that's exactly what this devil is doing. Jake is tired. You see? You have Jake running, you know, from Mexico, from Guatemala, you know, from Ecuador, you know, Peru, you know what I'm saying, where these countries are being destabilized by Esau. So now they're fleeing into America, and even in America, they're getting worn out, right? They can't have a moment's rest. Every time they look up, is something, you know, that this devil is trying to do to make you uncomfortable, man. You know, and this all goes into that secret council of the wicked, to where they devise iniquity, to where they devise of, you know, continuously how to destroy Jake. Drink some water real quick. to, you know, how they can continuously keep Jake down and oppress. Because the more that he oppress you, the more control that he has. All right. In Esau's mind, if he lets you prosper too much, then you'll rise up and overtake him. All right. This is why you know, Black Wall Street wasn't allowed to prosper. This is why Rosewood wasn't allowed to prosper. All right. This is why Seneca Village. All right. These are, you know, just to name a few examples out of many. This is why these things were not allowed to exist within America, man, because, you know, Esau, he don't like to see that. It's a threat to him, ultimately because he is our enemy. Right? And shall wear out the saints of the Most High and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. See? So this devil is thinking to change times and laws, man. Like he's looking to pretty much overthrow everything that's been in order for the past several hundred years. Right? And this is, again, to destroy the Israelites. All right, that's the purpose of all these things. Let's go to Daniel chapter 8. Daniel chapter 8 and Daniel chapter 8 and 25. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Now he's doing this, Trump, right? He's doing this in the name of peace and safety. All right, he's touting that these acts that he's trying to enforce is going to make America a safer place, because we don't know who's in here. All right, we have many terrorists that are in America, but you know, these are the same individuals that let these quote-unquote terrorists in America. So how hypocritical can you be? But you know, this is to be expected because we're dealing with the devil. You see? So you let the terrorists in, and now you're looking to deport them. It doesn't make any sense, man. But see, when you understand the grand scheme of what's going on, it makes perfect sense. Order out of chaos. That's what this is all about. You see? Daniel 8 and 25 from the top again. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. See? So it says by peace that he shall destroy many. This is what he's doing. All right, he's tearing families apart. He's destroying the morale. All right. A lot of people are afraid under Trump right now. And see, eventually it starts with Jake, but the persecution is even going to come down to the everyday Edomite. See, and that's what they don't realize. You know what I'm saying? This is why this thing is such a danger to everyone. You see? Because Jake is the main target, but these Edomites are also going to be collateral damage, man, because you're going to have a lot of Edomites that are going to have their rights and their constitution, you know, their constitutional rights revoked as well. And that's going to cause an uproar. That's going to cause sedition. So in that moment, Esau is going to say, well, if you rebel against the government, you're no longer a citizen. So now we have the right to come in and destroy you, throw you into a detention center, or deport you to another country. All right, so, you know, we're in that time of great persecution coming down. All right, U.S. Supreme Court divided over judges' power in a citizenship case. U.S. President Donald Trump took his bid to end birthright citizenship to the U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday in a case that could help further his agenda on immigration and other issues. The case asks whether lower court judges should be able to block presidential orders for the entire country, as they have done in this case. The justices did not appear to reach a consensus as they considered both sides. The U.S. Solicitor General argued that lower courts overstepped their authority, saying this power should be curtailed. So right now, you know, they're going back and forth over this issue. But they're going to have to make a decision on this thing sooner or later. But just know that these things are being brought up for a purpose. All right? These things are being brought up for the purpose of ultimately confusion, and putting more hell on the people. Since the 14th Amendment, our country has never allowed American citizenship to vary based on the state in which someone resides. As the justices lobbed questions at the lawyers, a large group of protesters gathered outside to voice opposition to Trump's immigration policies. That's another thing that's going on in this time as well. You have uproars of the people when you read 2nd Ezra's the 9th chapter. All right. Also, when you read 2nd Ezra 15, it tells you about there being seditions among men, and there's going to be many seditions in this time. Because you have food shortages, you have job loss. All right, people. A lot of people now are falling behind on their mortgage. They're falling behind on their car payments, credit card debt. Debt period is at an all-time high. Education is being cut. Crime is at an all-time high. So you're gonna have a lot of. Also, there's a war draft that's going to be implemented soon because of what's going on overseas. So you have a perfect powder keg of destruction ready to explode. All right, because people are only gonna take but so much. All right, then when we'll get into this, right? The lights, okay, which we've been talking about this, all right, for quite some time. Been reporting on this thing. Very soon the lights are gonna go out. All right, and this report just coming out. This is from Dabu. Prepare for lights out. Rogue devices found hidden in Chinese solar panels could destroy the grid. Now, this is the narrative that's coming out. We don't know if China is truly behind this or not, but we know how Esau gets down. We know that Esau, he'll do it himself, but then he'll blame another entity to be responsible. So, the heat is not on him. So ultimately, again, this is order out of chaos, right? So you can't have order from chaos if you're responsible, if people know that you're responsible for the chaos, all right? You have to blame it on somebody else and then bring in your solution to fix everything. So this is what Esau is doing, man. Because we don't know if China is involved in this. China hasn't came out and made a statement and said, we have embedded, no. All right? But why would they at the same time? So ultimately, we don't know what the hell is going on, But the bottom line is this, man. There's a huge event that's getting ready to block out the grid, you see. And this is really going to be the thing to set everything off. This is really going to be the proverbial straw that break the camel's back. All right, because look at what you have. You have job loss. You have higher prices, food shortages. Then you're gonna have a blackout. People not gonna have access to nothing. People ain't gonna have access to no TikTok. They ain't gonna have access to no internet. No type of entertainment, no type of transportation. Everything gonna be shut down. They're not gonna have access to their money. So that's when people really is gonna take to the streets, and it's really gonna be chaos, man. In that scenario, it's gonna be wild out here. So this is what these devils need to bring in the MOTB. And it's no coincidence that over the past 5 years, since the onset of the Great Reset, that you've constantly heard the rhetoric come out the weft of cyber attack, blackout, grid outage. You know what I'm saying? Like you've heard this talking point come out every single year. And it seems like the closer that we get to this event, the more you hear about it. And the more news that it seems to come out that this thing is right around the corner. So this is Dabu. Let's check it out.
This is Dabu 7. We have alarming reports now that rogue devices have been found hidden inside of Chinese solar panels and other products, and that this looks like it's a plan to destroy the U.S. grid. They're saying that these undisclosed communication devices were discovered in these panels and other products in the past 9 months as this investigation was going on. They say that in this, many different items have these little devices that can communicate back to the Chinese. You may recall me warning you that the ports here in this country are full of big, huge cranes that unload the ships. Those cranes, by and large, all come from China, and they discovered within those cranes the same thing. People are sleeping on this. We're about to get the rug pulled out from underneath of us big time here. The light's going to go out. They're going to blame China, but somebody let them in to do all this. Somebody doesn't care that they own thousands of acres right next to our military bases. And that's probably where all the Chinese that slipped in here went to. Because they're not rounding them up. They're not saying a word about none of this, which makes it even scarier. It seems like a setup from hell is happening right now. The Chinese are in here like a Trojan horse. Now, like a Trojan horse, all the electronics that are coming in have these devices in them that can shut them down. Now, they're talking about massive, widespread blackouts. A plan to literally cripple.
And check it out, right? You have to understand that these nations are working together, all right? Because on the surface, it would seem as though, America and China, they at each other's necks. But all these nations are conspiring together. They're all working together to bring about this NWO, the elites, okay? This is a theater of war. So, of course they gonna push the China thing out there, the China's responsible, just like they did with the CV-19. They said China was behind that, which very well, China had his hand in it. But at the end of the day, Esau is not innocent either, because they all are working together to bring about this, new technological Tower of Babel, which is predicated on rebellion against Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai and the forever enslavement of the Israelites and humanity, okay? So these nations are working together, don't get caught up in the back and forth and all the rhetoric, although these nations do have beef because Esau's the devil. But at the end of the day, what do you think all these summits that they have are all about? What do you think all these UN meetings and all this and that? All right, you have to be a part of the club to get down. All right, this is why even Klaus Schwab of the WEF, who was recently stepped down from his position, he praised China for having an exemplary form of government that should be instituted in the NWO. He came out and said that himself. So your enemy, all right, somebody that you're supposed to be at odds with, if that's really the case, you're not going to come out and praise them for whatever that they got going on now. Well, you're going to try to demonize them at every chance. And furthermore, you still trading with them. All right, you still trading with China. Even though he came out and said that he's lowered the tariffs, which I doubt that's the case. You know what I'm saying? Because the price of everything is still going up. And Trump is a damn liar, man. Like, you shouldn't believe nothing that come out that devil's mouth. Like, he'll say anything to pacify the people. All right, but when you look around, the ports are drying up. Really, what you have now is you have I don't want to get off topic, but just real quick, what you have now is like what the stores have in stock now is basically back order. All right, because once Trump announced them tariffs that he would do that, and when he first came in, many of these companies, they ordered extra stock to have in the warehouse. All right, because eventually they understand that the ships are going to stop coming in. You see? So these shipping companies, they all messed up. They not importing like that really at all right now. All right, the last shipments came in today's the what, the 15th? Yeah, so the last shipments came in about last week. Okay, so you're gonna start seeing, which I'm already seeing it. You know, I've been seeing it, different channels on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, but certain parts of the shelf, certain things are starting to become scarce. All right, so towards the end of this month, going into June, you're gonna start seeing, widespread shortages. All right, people are already panic buying. So again, combine that with a grid outage, it's not going to be good.
The grid is what this is that they're finding out. All these communication devices. Now, this affects many different aspects. Okay, they're talking about some of the chargers have this in them. The inverters have these in them. All these different parts are sending information back or can be remotely shut off, is the thing. Now, we witnessed Israel show the whole world that they can send out electronics and then blow them up. That has to be talked about, thought about at this point. This is a massive, absolutely massive story. They have just busted China sending in devices to cripple the grid. Now, what is Trump going to say about this? Because he said he's going to take the CCP's word that they're not going to send any more fentanyl into this country. Give me a break. Gentile Messiah trying to gloss everything over. This one is huge. In the end, they can point the finger at China for the history books and say they did it. This is going to cripple this country. They're not doing it for nothing. And how are we going to get these reports that this is ongoing and this not be talked about by the government right now, the White House, that this is a massive security issue? Not a word from them. Acting like everything's okay. So this is what they say. It effectively means that there is a built-in way to physically destroy our grid. And that's from Reuters. I've warned you about this for the longest time. When the grid goes down, you better be ready. We even made a song on it. And it's pretty obvious and clear at this point who is going to be responsible for all this. They're letting you know in advance. This is a setup from hell. And people should be raising huge questions and concerns through and through about this. Join me on the live streams where I break this down further, where I got time to dive into the details of this. Going live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Dabu 77.
Yeah, so, the time of Jacob's trouble is fastly approaching. Things are going downhill quick, and these devils, man, they getting ready to really pull the plug on this whole American setup, because they done with America. America has ran its course, it served its purpose, and really when you go into the history of how long an empire usually lasts, on average it's about 250 years, and next year, July 4th, America is going to touch that 250 year mark. So we here, you know what I'm saying? Things are deadly, crucial out here, serious, and it's about to be a lot of death, you see? But this is what Esau wants, okay? Because, matter of fact, let's go to 2nd Ezra, the 5th chapter, okay? Because the scriptures tell you that, 2nd Ezra 5:1. Nevertheless, as coming the tokens, behold, the days shall come, that they which dwell upon earth shall be taken in a great number, and the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. But iniquity shall be increased above that which now thou seest, or that thou hast heard long ago. And the land that thou seest now to have roots shall thou see wasted suddenly. All right, so coincide that with the time of, which is the same time, Jeremiah 30:7. Okay. It's going to be a time like never before on the earth. There's going to be so much going on at the same time. You see? Jeremiah 30:6, ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail? Meaning that it's going to be a time of great sorrow, great pain. You know, it's going to be a lot of languishing out here, and all faces are turned into paleness. Verse 7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, which, hey, the scriptures say that judgment starts at the house of Israel. Okay, so judgment is going to start with us. Okay, then it's going to go down, you know, to the other nations, but judgment is going to start with the 2/3. Okay, that's why I said the time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be saved out of it, the elect. Okay, those that fear the Lord are going to be saved out of this time. You see, so this is what we entering into, man. You know, Esau, he's setting it up to where, you know, he's looking to falsely accuse Jake, as he always does. But this is all to fulfill prophecy. You know what I'm saying? The 2/3 are going to get got. You know, they are going to go back to the spirit world or be detained in detention centers. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, even so, you know, even some of us, man. The scriptures tell you that, you know, we shall be martyrs for the Lord's name's sake. You know, so bottom line is persecution is coming. The stage is already set. Rogue communication devices found on Chinese-made solar power inverters. All right, so that's what we got into. So you have all these solar power inverters, you know, that have rogue communication. They can be used to black out the grid, man. So we in that time, you know, we're in that time. You know, things are turning up, man. So, you know, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close out. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying through the Rakah Kadash. Call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Rakah Kadash. And until next time, Lord willing, shalom to the elect. Kum Yasha'Allah wa Bible Ball. On to the next one, shalom.